Recording.
6 p.m.
Yeah.
in Mountain.
Alright. Let's get into the minutes from the last meeting.
Yeah, I had to make a change at the last minute before.
I don't know,
When
but
I looked at the
you
other agenda.
did a great job, because we slammed, I'm not
I
kidding, last meeting,
actually,
everything in.
at times I try to put the wording, but then it becomes.
How often do we have a 2-page minute? Alright, so I'm just reading
Okay,
through.
so let's make sure if you have, I hope you have notes. On solar
do.
panels and in the minutes, I said that we were gonna continue them later, which
Yep.
we are. On fencing, we said that we're going to continue the discussion.
Correct.
Okay, modular homes, we approved it. And brand dominiums, we approved them. Detached garages, we're gonna discuss at a later meeting. And the swimming pools, what you
I
talked
thought
about.
we,
Not the fencing, the swimming pools, filling the water, whatever, that part.
okay,
That's the part that I have approved.
okay. I thought we approved detached garages.
No, we didn't.
Okay, so we'll go back into that.
No,
That's
because
not
I
on the
did-
sheet, but
see,
I
I
thought pull
said
it up.
6 is pool, 7 special events,
Okay,
detached garages. We approved the detached garages, but we didn't talk about all the details.
well, let's go back through it, because I have the recommendations. I just sent them over to Lisa for,
Okay, so maybe I missed, I don't have.
It's okay, we can talk about that in old
Is that
business,
maybe-
that's fine. We can add that to the agenda.
All right.
Let's go ahead and read through that. Give me just a moment and I'll.
Okay,
pull that
so
paper
what,
up.
we're approving the minutes as they are?
Yeah. Mm, Okay,
Okay, you guys wanna move, second?
I second. Oh,
Move, Jackson,
you
okay,
wanna move?
Second.
Okay, I moved.
okay,
Who
you moved,
And
okay,
somebody seconded, yeah.
okay.
I thought you were moving and I
No,
was
it's
seconding.
okay, since I wrote them, I
Sorry.
read them.
Alright,
All right.
so let me get to,
So we
okay,
have residential solar here as old business,
that is old business.
but I guess, do you wanna talk about this detached garage?
Yeah, let's get through that, cause that's pretty easy.
Okay, but I thought that we didn't talk about all the details.
I thought we did, actually, we did talk about it, because we talked about sizing,
Because-
we talked about how big a
Then I
garage
didn't-
could be,
then
how
I-
small a garage could be. We
then I
actually had
didn't
about
ta-
a 12
then I
to
didn't
15 minute
take- I
discussion
didn't-
about it.
I know we had a
Yeah.
discussion, but I don't have a detailed information, that's what I usually have in terms of,
Based
No.
on what we talked
Okay.
about, I wrote the following.
yes.
Let me see,
Let me
Let
write
me
something
find it.
down here.
okay.
All right, well, what is it that you have?
Give me just a moment. Okay, so recommending the following in a new section to be added. I don't know where we're gonna put this. It could go in building standards, it can't go in accessory buildings.
Before?
It wasn't,
Because-
well, it might have been.
No, see, you have for research, building height, setbacks, and
But I wrote notes while we were talking for 15 minutes and wrote it out. Like all the things we talked about and approved. So let's go back through it and maybe it'll refresh your memory.
Okay,
So I don't know where it's gonna go yet. It can't be in accessory buildings because it's not an accessory building when you don't have a garage. This is specifically for people that don't have garages. Detached garages may be placed on any single-family lot where the residence does not have an existing garage, provided the following restrictions. A, garage shall match the primary residence in color and architectural design. B,
where do you have this language?
I wrote it from the notes. We all talked about this. You could go back and watch the video.
Can you, can
We
you,
literally said all
can you
this.
send me that?
Sure.
Okay,
I don't know if I have it. That's what I was looking for.
well, you weren't here, so,
Well, usually send it to me.
Yeah, I sent it,
No,
here's
because-
the process that I normally do. I send it to Lisa, She lets me know if anything else needs to be corrected, and if it doesn't, then I send it out to everybody. But she just got it today.
Oh, okay, so I don't have it anyway.
So you don't have it, but I'm gonna send it to both of you right now.
Okay, please.
Give me just 2 moments.
Since I don't have any language here that tells me that, you know.
But we
I
talked
mean,
about it
I
for
do have-
15 minutes while I was
I
writing.
said we discussed,
Yeah.
I did write in my notes that we discussed it.
You'll get this again after Lisa has a moment to look it over
All right.
and just check and see if we need to add or take away anything. But it's coming to you now.
So do you want me to correct it as?
Well, we don't have to
Before?
correct it, we can just say we discussed it, which we did. We had a little bit of a, I guess, a miscommunication. I thought I was gonna go ahead and write based off of what we had discussed.
Yeah.
But let's look it over and approve it tonight.
All right,
If
okay.
that, if it looks good.
Okay,
I got it.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay.
all right, hold on, let me look at my,
I'm just gonna read through for the room, and then you guys can read through for your own and get back to it. Okay, detached garages may be placed on any single-family lot where the residence does not have an existing garage, provided the following restrictions. Garage shall match the primary residence in color and architectural design, shall not exceed 864 feet. For the record, that is a 3-car garage. Garage doors shall not be closer than 25 feet to any street and should be side or rear facing when feasible. That language is already in the UDO under the building standards for garages that are already attached to a home. Detached garage should be placed, that's a typo, in the rear or side yard of the primary residence. Garage shall follow all building design standards in section 21.6.10.2 and all building height and setback requirements as set forth in section 21.6.8.
all right, I'm going through this thing that you just sent, and I'm trying to find it.
It's on page 6. In the bottom right corner are the page numbers.
Detached garages, okay. All right. Okay,
Is there any part of that you don't remember discussing?
I don't remember the specific language, but.
I think, do you remember we were talking about, I
we
was
talked
saying I
about
thought maybe.
the color, yes.
I thought maybe we should set a percentage, like it should be a certain percentage over the size of the house. But then you guys kind of were like, no, we should really, tell people how big it can be, other than it can be bigger than 3-car garage. But if you have a 900 or 1,100 square foot house, you should still be able to have the same size garage as anybody else.
Okay.
And that was, I'm trying to jog your memory on it.
That's fine, no, I mean,
Okay.
I don't
So-
recall, I recall
feet,
this in
right?
general.
Did I
but
put in feet? Oh, yep, thank you for catching that.
The what?
Okay.
What was it?
I put 864 feet instead of square feet.
Okay,
So that typo's been corrected.
okay,
All right, so I am sending a motion to approve.
okay, so okay, I'll second it.
Okay.
All right,
Okay. So that takes care of garages. Now, let's open up the solar panel discussion by you telling us what you found.
I didn't find anything, because I've been so busy, I haven't found anything, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I looked too, first of all, I couldn't even find that article that the Moore County put out,
Yeah.
or the pilot put out.
Yeah.
I searched the pilot website, I searched everywhere, couldn't find that article anywhere. I did not call the county, but I did search the county UDO to see if anything had changed or they had made any amendments. They have not so far. But that article came out like the day of our meeting on 8/20.
Yes, yes.
I still couldn't find it. I did go back and look to see if there had been any changes in state legislature. I could not find anything, other than what had been put out in 2023, and then there was an amendment to that in early 2024. Nothing that I could find.
But maybe they
was
were
changed.
talking about that. I mean, they're kind of like a little behind sometimes when they follow up.
And they could be. I based this is just a starting point, something we could start with and take notes and work through. It's certainly not the wording we have to use. I like to have a starting spot. So, if you'll read through, get out of that, get back to my notes. Okay, there we go.
So the 2023 is the state, you're saying? That made
2023 is the state that there, and I had the codes. I think the last sheet I sent you has this general statutes on it.
Okay.
Not the one that I just printed out, but the one that I just that I sent you last meeting, because we were talking about it last meeting. That has all the general statutes at the bottom, I think. What I used I used Southern Pines. It's not very robust. I used Ashboro. They have a little bit of a blurb. I used Navas, town of Navassa, Navassa, Navassa. Theirs was extremely robust and very usable. So what I took was I blended our UDO with their wording, plus I used
Okay, I just found something.
I gave you I can't find my copy. Did I give you a copy of the one from Pinehurst?
No, I don't. For solar?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm. What'd you find for Pinehurst?
I
What do they
can't-
have?
I
you
had it,
can't.
I can't find it on there. I thought I printed it out and gave you, that's why I was hoping you had it, but I'm trying to find it again.
In their UDO.
Yeah.
I also used the Planning and Zoning for Solar in North Carolina by Adam Lovelady. That was put out by UNC. It was the Department of Education and UNC got together and wrote a huge document, and I think that was part of the information you got as well. But that basically was written in 2014 to help small towns and cities navigate through what will probably be more and more solar demand because of high energy prices and green initiatives, and lots of different factors are involved in that. That's where I based all of my wording for what I have. Do you want me to read through that, or do you see anything,
No, I mean, apparently I don't see anything that it's really recent. More
Yeah, I
recent
didn't
than
see
what
anything
you
more
say.
recent than early
I
2024.
think in essence they're saying, I don't know why they use that language in terms of, was it dimensions that we talked about?
We were talking about height and dimensions, but I think, yeah, we were, what I read in the general statute is for single-family residents, this does not apply to condos or multifamily residences of any kind. Single-family residents, an HOA cannot deter a person from having solar on their property. They can guide it.
Yeah.
They cannot say you can't have it.
Yeah, well, that's what this language says. North Carolina Supreme Court ruling 2022, actually. In June 2022, the North Carolina Supreme Court ruled that while homeowners association solar panels laws cannot outright ban solar panels, they can dictate their placement.
Right.
However, they cannot require placement that would render the solar panels ineffective or significantly reduce their productivity.
Agreed. So with that in mind, with that general statute in mind, that's how I came to everything that I wrote to add to the UDO. But we can read through it And like right now, we have a blank slate. There's nothing in the UDO other than mounted parallel to the roof shall be located as to not be visible from the street. That, they can't, you know, we need to take that out. We can't tell someone they can't, you know, because of the productivity piece of it, we can't tell someone it can't be visible, it cannot be visible from the street. But we can say, when feasible, it needs to be in a certain, you know, and that language is in there. Let's go through it, and stop me if you see I'm gonna try to go a little slower. I know I talk super fast, but I'm gonna try to go a little slower. If you see something or hear something that immediately gives you pause, let's stop and discuss it. We don't have to go through the whole
Let
thing.
me ask you something.
Sure.
Are we gonna still continue to have it as a special use permit?
Yes. It's an accessory. All other municipalities are using it as a accessory item. So you would have it would be a special use permit for, or isn't a special permit the same thing you would do for an accessory building?
I don't know.
So what, okay, so that's a no, okay. So it needs to be, to me, I thought that special use was the same thing you needed for when you do an accessory building or any of the accessories that we allow in the community. So I need to find out wording on that. So maybe special permit might not be the right wording?
I'm not too sure.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down. Might not be the right wording, but it is on approval. Okay, so, starting out and treating it like an accessory. Accessory solar generation is permitted in all residential districts within Foxfire Village specified in Appendix A with the approval of a permit. I don't know if it's special use or if that's the right term, but permit of some kind by the Foxfire Village not council. That's, I'm gonna go ahead and fix that. It just needs to be approved by the administrator.
Is this in the recommendations that you just sent me? Because I don't see it.
Oh, do you have, no?
I just gave it.
Oh, in this one?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
I'm
in
looking
there.
at the one on you.
I'm sorry.
No, that's my fault.
What was I fixing?
Oh, okay.
Zoning administrator. Okay. A special use permit will be, or a permit will be issued when the development meets the requirements of the district. I don't know if, I must take out development and put accessory. The general statute or standards set forth in section 21.814 and follow these specific standards. A, roof-mounted solar systems. The collector surface and the mounting devices for roof-mounted solar systems shall not extend beyond the exterior perimeter of the building. May be placed on single-family detached or accessory building on which the system is mounted or built. Roof-mounted systems are allowed in all residential districts of Foxfire Village specified in Appendix A. Anything there?
No, we're fine.
That's good. Ground-mounted solar systems, ground-mounted solar energy systems shall meet the minimum zoning setback for the zoning district in which located, or shall be equal to the height. I think I skipped a sentence. And shall be equal to the height of the system. The height of the system shall be. Sorry, I was typing fast. And the height, I'm changing this, it's not going to read the same on your thing, of the system as measured from grade shall not be taller than 20 feet in height.
Now on that, at 20 feet in height, that's pretty tall. And if you need a few of them in your yard.
I don't know, that's a good question about a few. I think you only need one for residential. When you're talking about this ground mounted panel, it's on a pole, and it's mounted almost just like the solar farms. It's a large panel that might be this times 3, or even a little bit longer. But you would have one for a typical, this is residential application. It's not going to need to be as big or cover the same area as you would necessarily need for like a large production.
But it doesn't
But
say
we
that.
need to, yeah, I was gonna say, that might be something, we need to talk about that, yeah. So,
More than, I mean, like a limit on the amount of panels.
I don't know that we can limit the amount of panels because,
Well, you don't want a solar farm in somebody's yard because
and
then,
I'm agreeing with you, but I think we have to be careful. I need to go back and look at that state statute again and see what it says about how you can guide. An HOA can guide, but how can you guide? You can't guide to negate functionality. It has, like, if you have a 3,500 square foot home, and I restricted in my stuff, and we can talk about this too, I restricted the ground mounted systems to RA5, REEU, and 200. In the large lot areas, not in the community proper. Just in town, in the smaller resident lots, in the low density area, it would be roof mount only. We had talked about that a little bit, but we didn't get too far into it, but that's kind of where we went with it. Keep the residential area with roof mount only, or accessory. You can still mount it on an accessory building too. You can put it on the roof of either one.
Tasha, but
Yeah.
I think that we talk, I don't know if we talked about it, but we are making specifically this for not like for a farm, but for, you know,
It's
for
just
use
for
space,
residential.
right,
Yeah,
right.
just for residential,
Because
but his comment was, let's say that you are in RA5 and you want to have a ground mounted system. Can you have 5 of them? That's a farm. That's a mini farm.
right.
Why do you need 5?
Well, I don't know. I don't know
What if
if you
somebody
would need
wants
5.
5?
Well, I think at 5 you'd be producing to go back
Yes,
into the
right,
system, and
right.
now you have a hobby farm. Even though it's not an animal farm, you have an energy farm, because you're now producing enough energy to get a profit.
Maybe we should clarify that it should only be enough to provide energy for that particular.
I have to agree.
Well, I think this might be the one that I printed out as what I gave you. This might be Pinehurst.
Okay.
So here's the ground mounted.
Ground mounted solar panels are permitted if located within the building setback and screen from adjacent roadways and properties. But that doesn't say anything about how much of it.
But if it's screened, that might,
I do have screening in the, but I address that in a second. But, building, okay, so I'm just going through, what do they say at the beginning? Zoning districts, panels are permitted with the following conditions. They don't say how much you can have either.
I guess if it's within,
Integral
if it fits
solar
within
panels are
the
permitted on either.
setbacks and it's screened, I guess that would limit the amount that you could put in your yard. Because it has to follow the setbacks. So if you can't have too many, because then it would,
Well,
The
I
outside
mean, or
setback.
maybe talk about the surface that it covers, so that, I mean, if you wanna have 5, that's fine, but they have to be little, that kind of
Yeah,
thing. You know what I'm talking
I
about?
don't know that we can do, if we start talking about surface it can cover, then we're talking about regulating how much energy can be produced. So if we say, let's say, you can only have a 40 by 20 section, that's a big section.
That is a good.
Well, let's say 10 by 10, or 20 by 20, because that's more feasible. 40 by 20 is too big. So let's say 10 by 10. So you can have a 10 by 10 section. But what if that 10 by 10 section is not effective for the size house you have?
Okay, so
Then we've
I'm
regulated
going, like, when I've seen them on top of a roof, and they might have like, 4, 6 panels, but they're small panels.
Yeah, I agree with that. But when we're talking about ground mount,
Well,
how
I mean,
can we
instead of
restrict
there,
it?
they can be down, but they have to be kind of like the same.
But when you put them on a roof mounted system is already restricted by the amount of roof you have, because it can't go outside of the bounds of the roof.
Okay, so what I'm trying to
But what
say
about
is, that's
ground?
why I'm talking about surface, that it cannot be more than whatever you put out there.
But if you have a ground mounted system, it can't be larger than your roof footprint, I could have a pretty big farm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that rather than size, I would go with
Percentage of,
the amount of energy that it will produce that cannot exceed the whatever that is necessary for that single family home.
But who determines that?
and who polices it?
Okay, let me tell you before we go.
Yeah,
You don't want the special use permit. I'm reading
No.
the section.
okay,
Special use permit is for structures, uses listed in Appendix A, but it requires that prior to its approval, the quasi judicial hearing by
Oh,
the
no.
village council, because it's talking about a use that it's different than what you have there. Do you
So-
understand what I mean?
yep, and so this is just an accessory permit.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm correcting that now, approval of an accessory permit by the Foxfire Village zoning administrator. So I will replace every place that it says special use permit and put accessory permit, because we don't
Okay,
want them to have
so
to.
on this, I'm only thinking, and I don't know how to address it, but I'm only thinking that whatever it is, however the language comes up, that it should not be bigger than whatever it's necessary to provide energy
how
for
do you-
that particular.
how do you know?
I don't know specifically, but do you understand what I mean? Not like all of a sudden you're producing more energy that you can sell or
Maybe
whatever.
ground mounted systems need to be a reasonable size to accommodate the energy needs of the property.
Right.
What's your thoughts about that?
It goes back to reasonable.
Mm.
What's reasonable? There's
It's
gotta be
gotta
some
be-
kind of standard that, I
Okay.
mean, the way that it says it here, I think might work, because it says it has to be located within the building setbacks, which would tell you
But
how.
that, if we get to the bottom of this, okay, so I addressed, approvable components, screenings, glare, like, it has to be within the setbacks of the building code for that zone. Like, you still have to follow the building
Right.
setbacks, and then there's also screening involved,
Okay.
down at the
What
bottom.
do they say in the Pinehurst? Do they say anything?
Yeah, he's saying integral solar panels are permitted, ground mounted solar panels are permitted if located within the building setback and screened from adjacent roadways and properties. But it doesn't say how big.
Well, I mean,
Well, we're adding the 20 feet in height, right? So we're
Height.
putting that, so if we add this language and says it has to be screened,
but
so if they
isn't
have 20, it has to be
20 feet
screened.
very tall?
20 feet
20
is,
feet's pretty tall.
that's like,
Yeah.
So, but if you do it according to this, with that 20-foot height, you have to screen it, so
How
you'd
are
have
you
to
gonna
get,
screen 20
can't.
feet?
right, so
You
you'd have to get pretty big
No.
bushes or.
and then on top of it, if the screening starts to overtake the panels, now they're no longer
Right,
effective.
so,
So it's gotta
so
be,
how would they, this is not then dealing with the height either, because they're saying
No.
that if the panels are 20 feet high, Pinehurst is saying that, okay, but you have to have it within the setbacks and it's gotta be screened. So they don't care how high they're saying, they're just saying it's gotta be
And also in
screened.
terms of, if they're permitted everywhere, let's go back to, the lots on my street that are, some
ground
of them
mounted
are not.
systems?
Yes.
I did not have them permitted everywhere.
No, where do you have them permitted?
RA 5, RAEU, and R200.
Okay, then.
Just
you
large
can go-
lots.
Yeah, then you can.
Inside of the village, in the low density ground mounted systems
So
or
you're
roof.
permitting solar panels anywhere, but the ground ones only, then I'm fine with it, because, listen, if you got all that land and you put,
Whatever you
20 feet,
want.
that's fine.
But I agree with you, it needs to be shielded and screened from the roadways.
Yes,
If you've got all that
yes, I
land,
do too.
put it back where we don't have to
Right.
drive
Yes,
by it.
right,
Yeah,
right,
I agree with that.
Right.
Okay, so let's address that. We'll keep going and address that somewhere and make sure it's addressed in there. Ground mount systems are allowed in the following districts: RA5, RAEU, R200. Active solar systems shall be designed to blend into the architecture of the building or be screened from routine view from public right-of-ways or adjacent residential zoned property to the greatest extent practical given the design and site constraints of each particular property. This requirement shall not act to prevent landowners from being permitted to place accessory solar collectors on their property. So what we are we cannot tell them where they can put it, on the roof or in, it's gonna be based on what the solar panel company is gonna come. They're gonna do a site study, and they're gonna tell them where the most effective place to put it is.
Right.
If it's street facing, we cannot tell them by law that they can't put it where it's most effective.
Right.
So we are just asking if you can, if there are two effective spots and the away from public view is viable, use that first. Approved solar components, all electrical solar system components shall have an underwriter's laboratories listing the UL, that's the national standard, and the state standard. Plan approval required. All solar systems shall require an approved application by the Foxfire Village Zoning Administrator. Application for accessory solar systems shall be accompanied by to-scale horizontal and vertical elevation drawings. Drawings must show the location of the system on the building or on the property for ground-mounted systems, including property lines, zoning setback locations, and decommissioning plan. All applications that meet the design requirements of this section shall be granted administrative approval by the Foxfire Village Zoning Administrator. So basically what we're saying is, if you can meet the standards, you will be approved. There's no subjectivity here. If you meet those standards, you will get approved. All accessory solar systems shall be equipped with texture glass, anti-glare coatings to reduce or eliminate glare. All active accessory solar systems shall meet building code consistent with the North Carolina State Building Code, current edition, including adherence to structural standards, accounting for hurricane force winds of a velocity that have occurred or can be expected to occur in the area. All voltaic systems shall comply with the National Electrical Code, current edition. No grid-tied photo system shall be installed until evidence has been provided to the Foxfire Zoning Administrator that the owner has been approved by the utility company to install an interconnected customer-owned generator. Off-grid systems are exempt from this requirement. So we're talking about two systems here. You've got one that's grid-tied that needs utility approval first before anything can be put up, which I think that's a law anyway in North Carolina, and then off-grid system that does not require that. That is a battery backup system. Those are standalone and don't tie in or affect the neighbors in any way. Decommissioning, full decommissioning shall occur at the end of the accessory solar lifespan. All photo equipment shall be removed and the roof or location in case of ground-mounted systems shall be returned to the original condition. All photo equipment shall be kept in good visual condition and all components in disrepair shall be removed or replaced. I did not add, go ahead.
The ground mounted is, so B is ground mounted, and then it says C is active solar systems. What's the difference?
There is none. This is just sections. I just did an ABC, like the same format that's in our UDO. Maybe we could do A and B, and well, if I don't do ABC, if I do AB and then like 1, 2, 3, it's gonna look like all the 1, 2, 3s are just applying to the ground-mounted system.
So why, like with C, then it says this requirement shall not act to prevent landowners from being permitted to place accessory solar collectors on their property, and it talks about design to blend in.
Yeah, it's talking about the design only, Rick.
Right, but
that's for both.
Right, so on the ground-mounted systems, you said it somewhere, I was trying to find it.
How is it on the ground mounted, how is it supposed to blend in with the house?
Right, and how, I mean, is there a way to get away?
I think that the only thing that we can do is guide, and if it's gonna be what it is.
It's not like you're gonna paint them to match
No,
the color
but
of
if
the
you,
house.
let's say you have, because it doesn't have to be on pole either, ground-mounted system can be on a structure, a built structure. So let's say you build a structure, you can't paint it teal or hot pink.
Right.
It has to be like, like your home or with that same architectural or design. So if you build a ground-mounted system on a big rack, where there are racking systems for those, you can't, it has to blend in with the design of the primary residence. So it has to either be light color or black like a fence or something like that. It can't be hot pink or, fluorescent yellow or any of that stuff.
But it says, be screened from routine view from public right-of-ways or adjacent residential zone property to the greatest extent practical given the designs and cycles. So, that's giving them some leeway, and that
I think that's as far as legally, I think that might be as far as we can go as far as telling them how they can screen it.
Right.
Because we can't impede the productivity of the item.
So if somebody if I put solar panels up in my yard,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not really screened because the way I have them set up, and somebody comes and says, well, I can still see them from the street. Well, I have to do it this way because that's the only way it's done. So.
And that's really it. There's nothing we can, from the Supreme Court, North Carolina Supreme Court decision, we can't tell them further than that. Now we can, because we're allowing solar in every area, every district, we are restricting low density areas to rooftop only. They're not gonna get ground mounted systems. They still can have a solar system, but they're restricted to the type. If you're in a large lot or in the low density area, you can have ground or roof cover, whichever one you want to do. But we're not going to have, like, you remember the old satellites? Mm-hmm. That's what some of these things look like. That there are these it's almost like a shell. It like panels out, and it's on a big pole, and it can move around. That I don't think has any place in the village proper.
Can we say, okay, Rick, I'm thinking that when you have a large lot, most likely, if you're driving by, you're not gonna see it. But can we put in there that to the greatest extent possible, that they should be out of sight from the street
I
or
think it
something like
says that. But then in the next, that's why I pointed out, C then says that to the greatest extent, but the other way was saying it has to be done where it has to be screened. But
I think this said it had to be screened.
But if you don't see them from the street and you got a large lot like that, chances are you're not gonna see them.
Well, didn't you say that you had somewhere in there was you talked about the screening?
What I talked about with screening is part C. That's the extent of how we talk about viewing from public right-of-ways, adjacent residential zone property. I don't know that we can get any sterner with our language to keep ourselves out of legal trouble, because we're saying to the greatest extent practical, given the design and site constraints of each individual property. So if you can screen it, please do. If you cannot, there's nothing we can do about it, because there's going to be a point where the homeowner can say, you're messing with the efficacy of this product, and now you've kept me from having a solar ability at my home. I'm going to take you to court.
So basically, it's almost like
we're guiding the best. Well, we're guiding the best we can. We're giving somebody a guidance.
But if somebody says, I don't like your guidance, I'm putting the solar panels up because this is the best for me, and you can't stop me.
And the state has said, the state Supreme Court came back and said in 2022 that is exactly what they're saying. There comes a point where the HOA cannot tell a homeowner, you can't have green energy, and whatever that looks like. You can't tell them that they can't have it. You can just guide them. Like, a guidance is a perfect example. The guidance is making the distinctions between low density in the village proper, and saying you can have roof mounted in those districts, and then the ground mounted you can have in the low density in the large lots only, or roof mounted.
How could you stop somebody then that says, I don't want something on my roof, I'm gonna put... Can't
do that. We have given them, we haven't restricted their ability to have the solar power, we have guided them in the way that they can have the solar power.
But is there any case law that says that?
That's what the case law does say.
Says that you
can restrict the type. You cannot restrict the ability to have. Right. So you can restrict it to roof mounted or ground mounted or say no ground mounted altogether.
Why couldn't you say then no ground mounted?
You could. I just thought that in the RA there are very large lots, and it doesn't make sense that you would be restricted to a roof mounted. How many houses do you see out there?
Okay,
Most of our houses are well off the road.
This is what it says.
Yeah.
It says, however, it did not prevent homeowners associations from restricting solar installations. In contrast, the 2022 North Carolina Supreme Court ruling clarified that homeowners association solar panel laws cannot prohibit solar panels, but can influence their placement.
So, I just feel that, I mean, and probably I'm just overthinking it, but it's like when you drive down the Hoffman and you see that giant, the solar panels there at the end.
Oh yeah, I know where you're talking. The farm.
I mean, so could somebody decide that they want that in their yard?
I think that here's a distinction. There is a distinction between commercial production and home production. I don't think the state will allow. I don't think the like Duke Energy would allow you to be pumping so much into their system. They have a residential ability for, like, if you, let's say your residence your solar panel overproduces by so many watts, they'll pay you for that. But there is a restriction as to how much they'll pay you on a residential application. Now, if you're a commercial application, you have to pay commercial taxes for that. You have to have, there's much more stringent rules, state rules around that. And if you're producing commercial amounts with a home, then you're not a residence anymore, you're a commercial product.
So can we limit to saying that it has to be within the residential requirements and that you can't use commercial?
Well, that's what I was saying.
I need to look up what the residential requirements are and then put that language in there.
Because that will limit then the amount that they can put up.
Or I don't know if this is possible, that you're selling it to your neighbor.
Right.
No, that's not possible.
You can, because you can store energy.
If you have an off-grid system, you could.
Okay, so.
But if you start selling energy in the state of North Carolina, Duke's gonna sue you.
It reminds me of to this day, because in Argentina, actually, I think they can do it here. They can hack into your telephone line and use. Yeah,
That's
I'm not
funny.
talking about I'm talking about the line at your house.
Yeah. Well, there are people that can do that.
Okay, but I would recommend that in the placement, it be distinctly, at least encouraged not to put it in the front yard.
I think, yeah, so do you think, and I don't know, this is gonna go to legal regardless of what we do.
No, I know, but I'm saying
The
since you
setbacks, I
said
think,
that
the
he
requirements will do it.
Yeah.
Because it has to be back,
so
setbacks.
So let's read
Nobody
it again. Active solar system shall be designed to blend into the architecture of the building or be screened from routine view from public right-of-ways or adjacent residential zone property to the greatest extent practical. Priority should be given.
But I'm talking about
Yeah.
not only just screen, but not put it in your front yard.
But they do it, like the one on Hoffman, they do it well. It's there, but it is screened. Like, you're not
It's
seeing
growing,
it,
yeah,
right.
it is, they do have a screening
From the road.
plan.
Yeah, so from the road, it's really.
Yeah, but even if you're screening it, I'm saying that, I wouldn't want them to put it in their front yard.
But here we go again, if their front yard is the only place that they can get the most efficient, if they're at 100% in their front yard, there's nothing we can do to stop it.
All right,
Because then you are.
Even the setbacks?
Well, the setbacks we probably can make a case for, and that would go to legal.
Maybe it has to
but-
do with the fact that since we have an area with a lot of trees,
Yeah.
that it cannot be, if so many feet from your backyard you have trees and they're
Yeah.
blocking the panels, then you have to put them somewhere else.
Or take the trees
Or
down.
take the trees down.
Yeah, well. Okay, but maybe I value my trees so much that I'd rather put it in my
Yeah.
front yard because I don't have any trees there.
I think that there's gonna be some gray area that ultimately will come down to the administrator's decision. Just like with every other building thing that happens here. There's a lot, in our UDO, we try to do the best we can to guide, but there are a lot of gray areas we could find to exploit or to not know which way to go. And I think that's where the zoning administrator comes in. She will, she'd be like, okay, I'm looking at your lot, on Moore County GIS, and I see that you're trying to put this right up here at the road, but there's a more feasible place right here that doesn't bother your home. Give me a good reason that that doesn't need to go back here, why does it need to go up here?
And they would have to they would have to prove probably through like an energy company or something saying that
If they brought a foreman from the solar company saying that's the most efficient and that's what's gonna provide the energy, there is nothing anybody can do.
But we can still stick with the like there's no way,
guidance.
right, there's no way they can say we're not putting up screening.
No, I mean, we can say you have to screen it, that's part of the guidance.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the guidance.
So they can't just say we're not screening it because it blocks it.
Okay, and
You have to-
what do you define as screening?
Well, natural, you can't put a fence, right? So you're not gonna put a giant fence up, because we have fence ordinances.
Okay, so, but maybe that screening is gonna block the efficiency of the panel.
Well, that's what we're saying, so, but you still have to figure a way to have it screened. So whatever the most efficient way is to screen it, if it's shrubs, if it's whatever it is, you have to figure that out. As long as it's not blocking the sun from doing its job.
I think what you're gonna see is they're gonna be where the pole is, or the rig, or whatever it is that the solar panel's on in the ground mounted system. That is, you could feasibly put up a nice screening for the bottom, but you're gonna see the top. You're
Yes.
always gonna see the top.
I think you're right, I think if it's not in the village proper, and it's out on, 5 or more, right, it's 5 or 8
Yeah.
acres or more, so.
No,
I
there's
don't-
some exceptions to the rule, but most homes you really aren't really gonna see.
I don't
anyway.
think it's gonna be that.
No,
much
I
of a
don't,
problem.
I mean, not for the ground, yeah,
No, I don't think so.
all right.
All right, so, where did we get to? We got to decommissioning, and then adding definitions of build integrated solar system, building integrated, ground mounted, and then, photo system, all of those added to the
Okay,
thing. Do we need to, so I was gonna go back and look at the residential requirements for solar. Do you wanna see this wording before we approve?
no, I'm fine with this, well, I think that we've had enough discussion.
Yes,
and
I
think-
agree with the residential wording, whatever the state has said or Duke says about residential
Right.
solar, that can go in there
Right.
just as a reminder.
Mhm.
I think that's a good, I'll put that in there. Okay. All right, motion to approve.
Okay, I'll
Second.
All right. Now we're gonna talk about the lovely fencing. And I don't think I brought you one, but I think I have an extra. So,
That's from the previous one. right?
yeah, it is, because we didn't get to it last time, and I don't know, I mean, I think a good place to start on this, I think we really need to take a good look at the fencing that what we have already in the UDO. And then,
Okay, so are
We need
we're
to
done with the village business district fencing, right?
yeah, the village, we already finished that. We need to
So
talk
we're talking
about
about for,
fencing in general. Now, we can look at that and not do any adjustments to them, like just leave what's in the UDO, but here's what we were really tasked with. We were ultimately tasked with, putting in an appendix of some sort that would be a guide with photos, with measurements, and this is a measurement that I've got.
Oh, you were talking
It's
about
just
that.
an opaqueness, it's an opaqueness chart. But something to help people when they're doing these fence guides, like what types of fencing. We have all of this defined in the UDO, but we don't have any photo guides. We don't have anything that's easy for somebody that's about to put a fence up to go, I'm gonna go to appendix fences, and that's gonna tell me about opaqueness, because I have no idea what that even means. And then it's gonna tell me about what fence is what percentage of opaqueness, and then I can pick from what's acceptable in these areas.
yeah, that's
Now,
fine.
I have might be
Yeah, go
a
ahead.
silly question, because
No.
I forget, but it's not silly, it's just I forgot.
No, you're fine.
So here's all the districts.
Yeah.
I was speaking to somebody about the fences, and they were asking me a question, but it said RA5, which is the,
This is ETJ pretty much, yeah.
okay, so which one is the one for the village? Like the residential in the village?
All of them apply, okay, so in the fencing area, they kind of took away, they used to have, 3 years ago, there was a separation of UDO for ETJ. Like when I first moved here in 2020, I got a whole separate group of rules. And then there was the village ETJ, or the village codes and
Right.
zones. So they integrated those at some point in the, after that, I think 2021 or 2022. So everything, like when you're reading through the fencing and the UDO, that section, that applies to all the areas, and it tells you what, within that fencing area, it tells you what applies to who. Just like we said, ground mounted applies to zones, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
It says that in the fencing area, and if we want to, we can flop over there to the
Okay,
UDO.
So when it says
Find out what,
RA5, RE, EU, R200, that's the ground mounted systems are allowed in the following districts, right?
Yep.
So that's,
That's I follow the UDO on that. That's how the rest of the UDO is written. Like if you go to, let's go to.
but what would be so in the village proper, what would be the designation for that?
That's like RS20, RS30, RS40, all of those. These are your residential areas here. That's your low density area. This is RA, RA5, RER, RA. I might have to add, I'm gonna go back and look at that in a second. I may have skipped, did I skip that? I did. RA needs to be added to that. I'll go back and do that.
So, but isn't this RS, that's the residential, isn't that 20? So what,
What does
Yes.
that mean?
the designation?
It is the certain area, and I don't know that it's by lot size. I don't know if that has any.
no, it's not by lot size, because
It's
I'm
by
there,
area.
and I.
What are you?
I have the largest, one of the largest lots of my block.
But what's your RS?
I'm that.
20?
20?
Yes.
So.
And what's the largest lot that can be in a 20?
Mine is 3/4 of a.
I don't think it's
an acre.
stipulated by acre. I think it's
It's
stipulated by
not.
area. Like if you look at the zoning map,
Right, so
It's
if
like
you're in
yellow
RS
section of
20,
it.
right?
if you're in RS 20, then isn't there a limit to the size?
I don't-
All of those
Let me
lots are
pull up.
different sizes. I mean, my block, I am the only one, I mean, the other ones are, like the half, I don't know if it's half or even less than half an acre.
In which
But
zone?
I'm the one, I am.
In 20, in RS 20? But
But
there's
they're
no,
also-
there's no limit, you can be in RS 20 and have 10 acres?
Oh, no, there are no. They are, okay, so that area has, let me point,
Yeah. Go.
that area has now land that it's not developed.
Right.
Right, but the
So you
big
can only
section
build, but what's the limit that can be built then
But
in there?
RS
Oh,
20
this.
has a whole section, just like with this, what you're looking at here. There are
Right here.
building limitations and there are setback limitations. All that applies to that area.
Okay, all of this is not built, and, I mean, I keep on trying to figure out what they're gonna do, and I understand that they're, the 5 acres, whatever, that they're gonna.
RA5?
A question right there, so.
Where does it say that? Like
It'd have to
where,
be rezoned. Where is that?
yeah, like where does it tell you what you can build in those sections?
Well, it's not, okay, so
It's not
those,
the
that
table of
land,
uses.
that land is owned by somebody who's going to keep it, as long as they're alive, they're not gonna develop it, and it's gonna be whatever their children wanna do. And their children are developers.
But
so-
that's why it's zoned R20. They would have to have a public hearing to get
Yes.
that rezoned.
Yes.
That's why we have those
Because
zones.
it's all,
They
it's
have to
all
follow the
one
zoning.
piece of land that they own.
It just
They don't-
confused me when we were going
Yeah.
over it, and I just was not sure.
They don't have specific, small lots. It's a large area that has.
But just
no-
like with every other zone, it has its own sets of setbacks and different,
Right.
different stipulations. That's all in the UDO. That's like
So it says it
everything.
in there.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's like, you'd have to go through the whole UDO to segregate out everything that goes to the RS20 or everything that goes to RS30.
So there's nothing in there that says like RS20 allows.
There
up to-
might be. I mean, I'm not seeing it, but
It might be, I don't
I've not
remember.
looked for it. Honestly, I've never looked for it, and that's not something I ever really.
Because wouldn't that matter though, like if you're doing, so especially like with the solar panels, and you said, well, I'm in this zone,
Not really.
no?
Why would it matter? Because you have a roof, and you're allowed a roof
Okay, so
application.
we have building
that's all that
height,
matters.
setbacks and load dimensions for RS20.
So does the, with the solar panels, does it specifically say that the zones that are roof mounted only?
Do what?
So it's for
No,
solar
it
panels?
says that every district in the UDO has the ability, has the ability to put a roof mounted system on all of them.
Okay,
So you can have if you live in the village and you have a low density area, you're in the village, you're in RS20, RS30, RS40, anywhere other than RA, RA5, RE, RF200, EU. Anywhere other than that, you only can have roof mounted.
Okay.
If you're in those large lot areas in the low density, you can have roof or
They
ground.
give you a minimum
Oh, okay, there
load
we go.
size.
Yeah, where is
minimum
this?
load.
Oh, okay.
Building height,
They
setbacks, and
have
lot
the
dimensions.
minimum, they have the
okay, so it
minimum
does.
lot,
Okay.
but they don't have a
It doesn't have a
maximum.
max.
Right.
Interesting.
All right.
So
and-
if you're in that, you can have, so
Yeah,
technically
so
you can
there are
have as
some-
large as you
There's
want.
some people that have 20,000, mine is 3/4 of an acre, so it's more than 20,000.
And it doesn't have a, or does,
None of them have a maximum, they just have a minimum.
I don't think anything has a max, it's only minimums.
so technically you can have then as large a lot as you want inside the village?
Yeah,
You can have a 20-acre lot
if
inside the
it's
village?
zoned, if it's zoned that. And when they did the zoning, they really tried to encompass all of the large lot areas into the large lot, low density, zones. Like, the only reason that RS20 is there in that lot that's owned by one person, it's really big and it can be developed, it's developed, it's zoned that because they don't want it to be 5-acre lots. They want it to be RS20 and fall within the building setbacks and all of the
Yeah,
stipulations. So they can build on that, but
whenever
they have to
they
follow the
decide-
RS20.
Whenever they decide to build that, they can subdivide that, and it has to be minimum of 20,000 square feet.
Yeah. Or they can keep it larger and it can still stay in RS20, but it can follow all the rules and more, but it can't follow
Less.
less than the rules for RS20.
Okay.
Um,
It was just, the
yeah.
designations were just confusing.
Yeah,
So
and I think
yeah.
that
That helps.
she has helps, and I think when you read through the UDO, the more you go through it, I've never even thought to look for the different zonings. I try to keep a broad pen, but the more you look through, the more you see everything is laid out. For each area, these zones are for this, these zones are for this. I think it's pretty well organized, and I think we do a good job of keeping it that way. So for the solar stuff, I am gonna add RA to that, because I forgot that large lot, and I'm gonna correct that. I kept calling that R200, it's RF. I don't think we're gonna get to fencing tonight, but I would challenge
Okay, but in regards to fencing, we're not gonna get to it, but I wanna ask you.
Yeah.
Because the handouts that you send us, they don't have anything on fencing there.
because we didn't have, I think,
So what do you want us to look at?
I think what we needed to
Are we
do, I
looking-
think,
are
no,
we
they do
looking
have
at
it.
the UDO?
They do have it, because early on, that's where this came from. So I can go back and find it, I'm not doing it right now.
Well, no, I
But I will tell
understand
you it's in there, and that's where this came from. Because we've been asked to put in something that helps people when they're putting fences up to have a better understanding of opaqueness, because that's a question that comes up every single time, and something with photos. And I will bring up the Southern Pines UDO because I know that they have it. If you go to the Southern Pines UDO, they have photos of, like if the topic is screening, they give you photos of those screenings. If the topic is covering something, they give you photos of what's acceptable. We
Okay,
wanna,
so it is on page, I mean, the one that I have is on
Yeah.
page 74. 8.3 is fence and wall standard.
yes, but,
That's what we're looking at. Okay, but, so I understand what you're saying, but I'm going back to, I don't remember if I got a response from you or not, but I did bring up the thing about the swimming pools.
I would like you to stop talking about California with that.
No.
And go to North Carolina and find out if that's a North Carolina rule.
No, I remember when we talked one time
Yeah.
before about fencing, that was, where it
And-
was around, a pool, that showed the pool.
And we interpreted it differently. You interpreted that it needed to be around the pool itself.
No, that it was somewhere where the pool was visible, wherever the pool was, because, in this particular case we were talking about, it's not just the pool, it's their
Yeah.
their backyard fencing, which is
Yeah.
also side, because the lot faces the side faces the street. But I'm not talking about that particular thing, or whether, because whether it's around the pool or whatever, it's just when putting the fence wherever the pool is visible from the street.
I
That's what
think
I'm saying.
we had talked a couple times about wanting to address that. And that's why I knew we had to do this part.
But are we still gonna address it?
I would like to go through, this is what my hope was. My hope was to go through what we have in the existing UDO for fencing and really take a good look at it and see if there are any changes that we think are more up to date and help with that. And
Okay.
I think the swimming pool piece is one of them, because you and I both said, I remember saying, we
Yeah,
talked
you
about
said
this.
that if you had a
I had a
teenage
teenage daughter, I would want a more opaque fence.
And
I
for
would not
whatever,
want,
listen,
Yeah.
for whatever it's worth, even if I don't have the daughter, but I'm driving by, I don't wanna see people.
well, if my big tail's out there lounging at my pool, I don't want
I
people
don't wanna
looking
be watching
there.
that.
There's a lot of people,
Watching people,
yeah, it's just privacy.
well, yes, okay, exactly.
But the devil's advocate's gonna say, they don't wanna see a bunch of 6-foot, privacy fences all through the neighborhood. So where do we find the common ground?
Well,
And then
I'm
two,
not talking about the 6 feet, I'm
Yeah.
using this particular example because it is the only one that that it's obvious.
Yeah.
But I would say that, maybe I'm totally off, but that particular side, that where you see the pool, the particular side, not everything else, should have different requirements than everything else.
Well, couldn't you put, like, if you're, I understand with the fence for safety, because you don't want people falling in the pool, but if you're a homeowner, like if I put a pool in my yard, I'd have the fence around it, but I'd put some kind of shrubs around it so people couldn't see.
that's true. I like that idea.
That's
too.
what I would
So-
do. Because then you
Okay,
can't,
so then I can understand what you're saying, then I would add it to whatever the fence is, that if it is, if the fence is, I don't know exactly.
no, because if you say you're not shy, you don't care that people are looking at you, as long as you have a fence that's,
Okay,
you know.
no, but, okay, so I don't know exactly how to word it, but I'll try to explain it. If there's a fence that blocks a pool from public view, that, again, the encouragement is to put landscaping that blocks the pool.
Well-
Not necessarily, I'm saying, you have the pool, you have the fence, but in addition, have some kind of fencing.
Well, I don't think you can, as long as you have the fence that protects people from falling in, which is the goal of the fence, right? The goal of having a fence around the pool is for safety, right? Because you don't want people going in. If you don't care that people can see you from the street, and all you have is the fence, I don't think you can make people put the shrubbery up. I would want people seeing me, so I would put some type of shrubbery up. But I don't think you can make people, if they have the fence, I don't think you should say you have to put shrubbery to block it.
I just think that rules about other things seem to kind of, like contradict. You don't wanna see the trash can, you have to have a fence to block the trash can, but it's okay to have, people bathing, whatever.
You could say,
However-
you could say that about almost anything. You could say, well, I don't wanna see people sitting out in their hammocks, or, I don't wanna see people, it could just go on forever. I get with the pool, the reason is the safety with the fence. So, unfortunately, you might not wanna see some people swimming in their pool, but that's their yard, and, you can't stop them.
I think that I would say, everybody study two things. One, what's existing in the fencing standards to include the pool fencing, because we have fence standards, then we also have a section for pool standards for fencing. We have dog run fencing standards. We have all these different areas to look in, so I would challenge everybody to look at what's in the UDO now. Check with your municipality, whatever your assigned municipality is, and see what they're doing. And then let's write down some pros and cons. Should we leave everything the way they are and just add in this? Or do we want to update, or do we want to at least have a discussion around updating
Well,
this?
it seems to me like that's the only issue. I don't see the other things that we're not gonna change the height.
No, I don't think so. I think the opacity, we can be a little more lenient, but that's just my opinion. And I don't have any concrete areas.
This is just personally, but I'll go along with whatever. I just don't understand, why it cannot be a solid fence, period, for my taste.
Mhm.
Because people go around closing the blinds because they don't want people to see them in their houses and stuff. But we don't have any fences around,
Or
so
the pools and
it just
stuff.
contradicts stuff.
I actually like the fence that's over there. I know it was a big hoopla
For
because
me,
of the way it was done. It was it was right. He was very smart about how he did it. But I like that style of fence. I think it looks nice, and it's not completely a privacy fence.
Which one?
The one that's on Hoffman Road, they put the pool in, and then they put up a fence, and he did meet the opacity rule, but you don't meet it from every angle. So if you stand to the side, the opacity rule is done. If you look straight onto that fence, it looks like a solid fence. But as you go by, there's light in between. So it kind of meets both. I don't mind that, but there may be others who don't particularly care for that.
Well, here's Pinehurst right here. It just says there shall be in accordance with, for swimming pools, accordance with North Carolina State Building Code.
which is you have to have a fence.
Just
where
a
there's
fence,
pool,
yeah.
Period.
But it also says conform to fence type, style, and location requirements of the PDO.
Oh, so they're saying, that's separate from what their fencing ordinance is.
This is for swimming pools.
Yeah, but they also they're saying you have to also conform, not only do you have to conform to the North Carolina rule,
But
but you have to conform to whatever their separate rules are for the
Yeah, they have it
zone.
here. There's talks a lot about golf courses. Fences, walls, similar structures not over 6 feet in height may project into the rear or side setback provided the lot does not abut a golf course or a lake. Fence, walls, and similar structures are prohibited in the rear setback if the lot abuts a golf course or a lake. If the side yard does not abut a golf course or a lake, fence, walls, and similar structures may be erected to a maximum height of 6 feet. Such fence or wall shall not be built in or through a required buffer unless the fence or wall has been designed as an integral part of the buffer and approved. So
we have in our UDO already that 48 inches is the max height, except for swimming
Except for when you
pools,
have swimming pools, yeah.
which within the setback shall be a minimum of 48 and can be a maximum of 6 feet.
Okay, so that to me is,
That's reasonable.
well, no, not to me,
Mm.
because if you wanna have a swimming pool, you're allowed to have a 6 feet, but if you don't have a swimming pool, you can't.
I have to agree. I do agree with that argument. I honestly do. I think it's not, that might be something to look at, to not restrict if we're gonna let somebody that has, you'd have to put a swimming pool in to have 6 foot fence, or can you have a 6 foot fence if
So
one of
you're
them have a
allowed to
gazebo?
have I mean, in this
Yeah.
case, particular case that you're talking about, the fence of the house that you're talking about, the house, the pool is not around the fence is not around the pool. The fence is
around the
around the
backyard.
backyard.
Which most people in this area do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying, okay, so if I build a swimming pool, I'm allowed to have 6 feet, but if I don't build a swimming pool, then I can only have 4 feet?
That's the way it is in the UDO right now. This is exactly what I was talking about. This
Well,
is
see,
exactly
that
where we might
that
need to
one
sit
I
and
don't
have some discussion.
I don't agree about,
It looks like Pinehurst has it laid out.
See, that's what I'm talking about. They have a drawing. I would like photos. But they have where, like, we don't have anything in the UDO, like if somebody's gonna put a fence up, they have to go out on their own, figure out opacity,
Yeah,
figure
this
out
is
what
pretty
type
good.
of fence. Like, that's the type of thing that we need to add anyway. But while we're playing in this sandbox, we can banter around and talk about, are there any other things that we would like to make more fair? Maybe the 6-foot rule.
well,
Let's
yeah.
have a discussion
for-
around that, you know,
for
things of that
instance,
nature.
I have, my yard, my side
Yeah.
yard is completely fenced, I have 4 feet. Thank God my dog doesn't jump over it, but I've had dogs that jump over 4 feet, but it's a little bit harder to jump over 6 feet for a dog.
Yeah.
Or for that matter, for the deer to jump in.
That's true. And for your garden, I get it. I get it. So that, I mean, that's
So-
exactly
so
what I
I'm
think we need to start
okay,
thinking about.
But you're rewarding people that wanna have a pool, and I'm not allowed to do it because I don't have a pool? That's not, to me, that's not fair.
I agree with your argument. I see absolutely what you're saying, and I agree with it. I think that, you know, not everybody wants a pool. They're a lot of work. You know, most people that have pools have younger children. You know, we have a lot of retirement
And
folks
why
that
six,
don't
why
necessarily
6
want
feet?
that.
Because you have a pool, let's put it that way.
I think that that is probably because of the privacy rules, or not rules, but privacy aspect of it. I think that that's where that came from. But that's what I was talking about. I think that we need to look at opacity. We need to look at fencing rules like that particular one where there's an exception for one and not for the other. This is a good time to go through those things. While we're working in this section, let's go through each of those things. Let's look at our respective communities and see what do they set it apart? You know, are there swimming pool people getting 6-foot fences and then the other people getting 48 inches fences? Like, we need to have a whole discussion around that.
We're, my block, or my area is stuck with 4 feet because we don't have, none of us have a pool.
Yeah,
I
and
think-
none of you might not want one,
Well, that's fine, but I would
Yeah.
like
a 6-foot fence.
and I'm being sarcastic because I would not go knock it down.
No, but
and
it's a
put
good
a
argument
new
to
one.
have, you're right, you're right.
I like the idea that the stockade fence is not, that's not.
Yeah, I think
like
that's
that.
not a great
It's-
idea.
It doesn't look good, and
Yeah.
I think just quickly looking at the way they have it here, I think they do a good job with what types of fences and explaining, like the picket fence, it has to be 4 inches, where is it, 4 feet high, horizontal rails has to be 2.
What material?
And 1 inch
are
between
we
pickets.
allowed? What material are we allowed?
Well, this is saying, they're saying you can have vinyl too, wood and vinyl.
This
No, but
is
what about Rhode Island?
And iron, yeah, it has that too.
permitted
And
fence.
also, how,
In our UDO says wood, stone, brick, wrought iron, powder coated aluminum, PVC, or a combination of any of those materials. And you can have a light gauge wire mesh attached on the inside of the fence as well
which
if
I
you'd like.
do have, but that
Yeah.
doesn't stop the bunnies and everybody else from coming.
So here's what I'm gonna, because we're not gonna be able to tackle
No,
this
no.
tonight. So I'm gonna challenge everybody to read through the UDO, make some pros and cons, some things you might wanna see changed, some things that, you don't have to write down everything you agree with. If you agree with it, don't write it down. But if there's something that you wanna change, like the 6-foot rule, you wanna challenge it and have
Oh,
a
I'm
discussion around
challenging.
it,
I'm
let's.
challenging.
No.
I just don't agree with rules that favor certain people for
And
whatever,
I agree
and
with
others
that.
don't. I mean, I
I
really
agree with
don't.
that. I think you have a great argument, and I think that we need to put it to the group and talk through all these things, because that's an excellent argument, and I don't know why anybody's not made it before. It's an excellent argument. I can't really come back at that and say, well, people that have pools need privacy. Well,
And I don't need privacy.
I was gonna say, if you choose to have it, you choose to have it.
Right.
So look, read through the UDO, look through the fencing in all the sections. There's the zone, there's the 21.831, but then there's also separate for pool fencing and then for dog run fencing. Let's try to look at them all. So if you go to the search feature and just hit fence, you can go through everywhere fences in the UDO. And then look at your respective area. I love Pinehurst. I actually wrote down that I'm gonna look at theirs. I love Southern Pines, same thing. They actually have color
Well,
photos of
Southern
actual
Pines
fences.
loves their privacy
Yeah.
the way I do.
They do love their, and they have fences everywhere, but they also have
Yes,
trees
yes.
everywhere, and they make it work.
Yeah, and I mean,
So
my son lives in Southern Pines.
it's
I like
beautiful
that
down
feel.
there. Yeah. Well, my office is down there, and I walk around all the time looking at different things, and there's some things that might
I
not
mean,
apply here. But
I'm in my son's backyard. He's got 6-foot fence. I don't see anybody. He's got his.
is his completely privacy fenced?
Yes, the entire thing is fenced.
But it's the type of fence. It's like.
It's blocked completely.
Got it. Okay. So let's do that. Let's look at our UDO, look at your respective UDOs, and then let's bring some things to the table to really have a good, robust discussion at next meeting on that. Anyone have a public comment? I feel so bad that we bored that fella to pieces. He was probably like,
Hey, Juan.
so, yeah, we were geeking out up here on that solar panel stuff. We apologize. So, anyone have a public comment? And I will try to do public comment, and I'm gonna put it on the agenda. I've already wrote myself a note. If anybody, I challenge you to stay awake long enough to get to the public comment section.
Maybe we want to check on that and see if there's, or maybe we can do it at the beginning of the meeting.
That's not a bad idea. Maybe after the minutes.
But have a specific.
Yeah, we can do it
time.
for like 45 minutes. But if we do 10
No,
minutes,
15 minutes.
yeah, and
that's
then
it.
we don't really get a big crowd. I mean, we're not that exciting.
Well, no, and once in a while we are. But
Yeah.
why don't you check on that? I mean.
I will. I'm gonna see. I'll look and see if there's any legal reason we can't do that. But I would like to hear the public comment beforehand, because maybe if I'm more detailed with the agendas, they already know what we're gonna talk about, then that would give somebody the ability to come in and go, hey, I have something to say about fences, because I know you're discussing them tonight. This is what I have an issue with. This is what I would like talked about. And then we can add that to our discussion. And we may have certain situations where we have to research it or
And
whatever.
on the other hand, I would like to hear it because it might benefit my discussion on the subject.
I think it would be a benefit to hear them, but not really, I guess
Not
legally too,
respond,
not to
not
respond, but
respond.
say.
Yeah,
right.
put
I
that in
agree
there.
with that. I think
Yes.
no responses, but let's hear the comments,
Yes,
and then
yes.
they already have the agenda, they know what we're talking about
Yes,
that week,
I
and they may
agree.
have something that they're like, this doesn't pertain to anything you're doing today,
Then
but
I have
here's
some-
what I would like to
Okay.
see, and then we can put that in the notes section, and be
It gives
like,
people
okay,
a
let's start
chance.
addressing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
agree.
think that's an excellent idea. Okay,
Right.
Motion to adjourn.
Yep, seconded at, I
I
can't see.
forget the second that just looks like.
Seven.
Oh, seconded.
17.